Welcome to one of a series of podcasts focusing on transformative technology in financial markets, and in particular, chat and messaging platforms. My name's Dan Eccleston. I'm co-founder of Push-Pull Technology, a London-based solutions provider, and today we're going to focus on the impact recent AI developments are having on chat platform use. I'm delighted to be joined by Peyman Mestchian, a financial markets industry veteran. Peyman has founded and advised many organisations and is currently, amongst other things, Director of Research and Professor at UCL Institute of Finance and Technology. Welcome, Peyman.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, nice to talk to you. Thank you. So to kick off, a question on AI evolution, maybe a little bit of the history and where we are now. So you've been involved around AI for many years, and large language models seem to have suddenly become more accessible and useful in the last couple of years, which you must have been noticing, and that's not just in financial service but across the board. Do you think general awareness has suddenly been stimulated by the likes of ChatGPT? Has that been a major catalyst for that? Because it's not like this stuff just appeared out of nowhere. Or what are the other factors that for the sudden interest?
So yeah, the short answer is yes. So LLMs and ChatGPT, their adoption, has been exponential. But I think they are not the reason. They're not the cause for increased use of AI. I mean, AI is, as a discipline, is actually not a lot of people know, but it's probably about 50 years old. It's been around for decades, and it's gone through many cycles of trial and error and different techniques and so on. I think what's really brought it to the fore in recent years is a number of different factors coming together at the same time. I think one is around the availability of data. So modern day businesses and society as a whole, we are generating so much data, and the volume and complexity of data is increasing exponentially. So and it's available. So all the way from the internet, social media, internal, external to the organization, we're surrounded by data, and in all shapes and forms, structured, unstructured, semi-structured, and so on. So there's a mass explosion of data. So that's one vector. The other vector is actually to do with hardware, so processing power. In terms of the GPUs, and both in terms of speed and cost. Hardware performance is at the highest level it's been, and it's improving. The speed and performance of hardware is improving. I think statistics say it's like every 18 months is doubling. So that's a factor, and it's more generally available. Whereas maybe a few decades ago it was only available to the very large organizations with deep pockets or very large labs or sort of research institutes at universities. It's now just generally available. So the hardware, the data coming together, and then yes, there's some there's an improvement in actual AI techniques in terms of models, neural networks, and the way we use that data and the way we use that hardware to train AI models. So those three forces coming together over the last few years have resulted in fantastic innovations such as large language models, which then are generating text and creating all sort of productivity benefits.
And I guess interestingly, ChatGPT was able to be given away for general consumption for people to try it because it was suddenly cost effective or even cost possible to be done at that time because of all those. The confluence of all those things at that particular moment.
Yeah, well, look, the start things with free models and then find other ways to monetize it is a tried and tested model by our big technology friends. But whether it's free Facebook or free Google searches are free. So there's it's a if something is so powerful and you put it in the hands of people for free, they understand the benefit and the power of it, and then once you get the non-linear growth in adoption, then the monetization opportunities come down the road. So I mean, you have a bit open source. I mean, it's called open AI for a reason. It's basically it's open source. So that's the good, well-established, tried and tested open source model, which I think is the way in the future. And now, as you've seen, the other big players, Microsoft, Amazon, are all following suit. I mean, even the earlier versions of this around IBM Watson, there were free versions of IBM Watson also available for downloading. Not as mature as this type of thing, but in terms of natural language processing, natural language understanding, using the free initial free-based model to get adoption is the way forward.
Yeah, let's come back to the financial model a little bit later, because I've got some good questions on that, hopefully. One of the powers of large language models, obviously, interpreting less structured data and specifically natural language, right? That could be voice, it could be email. More and more, it's chat. My company Pushpull deal with all of those. Predominantly, there's a lot of interest in chat at the moment. As you know, in trading and risk landscape, a lot backwards and forwards on chat all the time. One of the challenges we're seeing is how we can understand how accurate the outputs are in relation to how accurate they need to be from a trading perspective, and also from a risk perspective. And I'm wondering if you see any of the organisations you're involved with dealing with the same problems, and how you think those problems are being dealt with. Partly from any sort of systematic way of understanding how accurate things need to be and how to measure that, or is it still at a stage of very kind of suck it and see, have a go, and that kind of a more early development stage, particularly trading and risk are the key ones, because you need stuff to be accurate, right?
Well, look, I mean, maybe step back and think about what large language models are. They're not search engines. There are large language models of fundamentally statistical models that are trained using data. So it could be unstructured data, structured data. So statistical models which have got probabilities of certainty, to your point around accuracy and so on. So of course, the richer, the more complete, the more comprehensive, the higher quality the data is that's being used to train these models, then the better the output. Depending on the domain of application, sometimes data is lacking. So I mean, for example, like using extracting signals from news, unstructured data to suggest signals for generating alpha in the trading environment, in your world of capital markets as well. That's been around for some time, even hedge funds and algorithmic trading and so on. And of course, the more you train it, the better it gets. So it's that's been around. So large language models, what's happened in the last year or two is more around generating text rather than understanding text. The text understanding, like extracting an entity, be it a company, an equity company from news, and then understanding adverse media, negative news about it, or positive news, and then scoring the sentiment, which then feeds into some sort of risk model for trading decisions and so on. That's been around, and of course, this type of neural net-based training is constantly enhancing it. So that's fine, and I think we'll carry on getting better at that. I think the point you're making around accuracy, though, is when we move into the world of regulated activities, which trading, investment decisions, investment advice, using AI for investment advice. There, as you know, in the regulated environments, you need model governance and model transparency and model explainability. So that's not just explaining the model itself. When models are being trained at such large scales with such large data sets, it's very difficult to explain why a piece of advice or a recommendation or a signal is coming out of the model. But the regulators actually require, a clear, auditable trail of understanding these recommendations, because is there bias in the data? Is the data quality, quality controlled? And so there's a data quality control aspect to it. There's a model governance aspect to it, and I think that aspect of it around risk and compliance, we are in early stages, but it's going to be a massive area, and there will be wrong decisions made because of inaccurate inputs, which result in inaccurate outputs, and it can have multi-billion-dollar implications. That's going to happen. So all we can do is to enhance the governance and control mechanisms around this, and make sure there's sufficient human in the loop and subject matter expertise before decisions are actually, somebody presses a button. And I think these are emerging fields.
Yeah, and it seems certainly for many trading and risk workflows, that the human in the loop, at least at the initial stages, is absolutely critical, and then it can be dialed down to a certain extent by putting further rules and deviations and filters around it. But yeah, I totally agree that the human in the loop is really key.
Yeah, so look, there's a spectrum. Some of the work we do at UCL, and I've seen research from other institutions and some of the companies that I work with, is there is an emerging field as a subset of AI, which is called decision intelligence, which actually is for those from your audience, those who are familiar with the sort of world of enterprise software and so on, decision intelligence is sort of half artificial intelligence, half business intelligence around dashboards and visualization of information. Decision intelligence sort of sits in the middle, and there's a spectrum of sophistication from just decision support. So basically the system provides a set of recommendations, but ultimately it's the human who makes the decision, all the way to the other side of the spectrum, where it's actually the machine making the decision. There's no human. It's an fully automated decision process, decision scoring. And depending on the domain, we already have like credit decisioning in the financial sector, and there are systems like that do medical diagnosis. Is the machine actually recommends this is what you got, and the doctor really comes right at the end to just verify it or not. And so depending on the domain, and again availability of data and the accuracy of data, the level of automation and how the man-machine allocation of functionality depends on availability of data and also the nature of the task. But of course, the more safety-critical activities, such as medical diagnosis or making decisions about, I don't know, earthquake signals or air traffic control and so on, that's where we're not at a stage where we can just give everything to the machine. So
yeah. Presumably there's a certain amount of AI driving cars already, and probably flying planes, though we don't really want to think about it, right? So it's interesting that precedent set in those really critical areas, and it's probably behind to a certain extent, aren't we? Certainly in capital markets and regulatory side, in belts and braces of.
I mean, your air traffic control and autopilot type stuff is a really good example, because the safety control systems around the machine decisioning or machine recommendations are incredibly sophisticated and well tested, and the human in the loop is built into the system. To make sure that the responsibility and accountability is not given to the machine, is given to the human. And so there's a whole area of sort of AI governance, which I think is going to be one of the fastest growing consequences of this adoption.
Just back on but building an AI model or a large language model and training it, I don't know what your thoughts and experience of. Obviously, it's become much more easy more recently to be able to license and utilize a third-party model. Is there a certain point that you've seen where people say, I mean, maybe you say, 10 years ago you had to build your own, right? Because there just wasn't much useful out there. I don't know, but now obviously there's a number of competing services, all vying to get people hooked in. From Google now, like Amazon and Microsoft, obviously, all the famous. What do you think about these? So some of them are open source. They're trying to get people to license them. Is there a natural cut-off point, and what type of business should be building their own anyway? And if not building your own, how do you see that model evolving? Are businesses going to get sucked in and then get kind of charged through the nose for them in 3 to 5 years, as has happened occasionally in other services?
Yeah.
Or do you feel like it's going to be kind of a more open kind of world than that?
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. In fact, I was in a closed session with a number of financial institutions a couple of weeks ago, and this specific question came up, and these were like tier one, super tier one financial institutions already with a lot of their own R&D around this, and of course then you get these LLMs, generally available models coming in as well. I think the sense I got from the CIOs, CDOs, and CROs is that they will definitely adopt a lot of these external LLMs, the generally available libraries and models, but they will enhance and customize it with their own. So a little bit like if I pick the sort of well-established areas, so in the world of credit, the established models from Moody's, KMV, and so on that everybody has. But then if you go with the bank, they've got their own internal models as well, and they use it for benchmarking and calibration and optimization. There's a mix of internal and external, and so on. So I think for the large institutions, they will develop their own capabilities and supplement and augment it with the external models. As you go down the tiers where they don't have the resources, they don't have the expertise, and the labs to develop their own models, the adoption of external models as sort of out of the box is going to be higher in the lower tiers, so tier 2, tier 3 institutions. But I think the tier 1s will have a combination of internal and external.
Are you seeing?
Which by the way gives them an advantage. Be it a trading advantage or a pricing advantage. And it becomes an arms race of who's got the best models.
Partly based on the tech itself in terms of how their algorithms are training it, and also partly based on the data,
access to data. They have better data, more data, and they have more talent in terms of data scientists and AI experts, and therefore they get those marginal edges that you need to get to better price a risk or better price a trade. It will be an arms race.
Yeah, for sure. Just moving away from AI into something that's more core for ipushpull's territory. We're doing a lot of work on large language models now, but one thing that combining chat and financial markets workflows is something we've been doing for some time now. And I know you've got a background in risk financial markets. We've talked about it before. What do you think are the obstacles for getting better real-time information out to the people that need it in terms of trading and risk from whether it's third-party services or in-house risk systems? And can chat be a better part of that than it has been, particularly for real-time? Because we hear a lot that risk can still be reported by email or through batch file downloads, What do you think the benefits of getting stuff in real time at to the people that need it, but also what's holding things back, do you think?
So look, going back to sort of the decision support mental model of thinking about this. I mean, if you're chatting, whether you're chatting with a human or you're chatting with a machine, you're chatting with an objective, and the objective is to make some sort of decision or take some sort of action. So the chat is a type of decision support. So then it comes the question of what's the source there, and of course, human-based chat is limited to the brain and knowledge of the human that you're chatting with. Machine-based chat or machine-assisted, AI-assisted chat is got a vast data lake, almost infinite amount of data to analyze, and give you hopefully an enhanced set of recommendations or for you to make a decision on. So and that's fine. Then it comes to your point around real time, and then the accuracy and so on. So obviously the current LLMs, and they will get better and better in a nonlinear fashion, but we do have a problem around some hallucinations from the LLMs, particularly where there's insufficient data and they make assumptions. And because it's a statistical model, the less data you have, the more likely it is that your statistical model is wrong, or you actually give the totally opposite recommendation to what you should, and so on. So that's something that we need to watch out for. And then, but I think that will improve. Embedding chat as part of risk-based decision making or risk-based trading, I think it's here already. It's here already, and it will, it's likely it will mature and improve. The real challenge, the real obstacle to success, is to do with earlier in the value chain, which is around data aggregation. So if you think about the data that needs to be consumed by a model to give an appropriate risk-based recommendation, it needs to get data from multiple external sources, on the Dow Joneses, the Refinitives, the Bloombergs of this world, and news, social media, even now, various external databases and corporate registries, and annual reports and so on. So there's a whole body of structured and unstructured data externally. And then you got internal data as well, depending on what the risk, if you're doing, if it's market risk, credit risk, or operational risk, depending on risk types. So the real challenge is, look, I want to risk assess, Dan Eccleston today. Just extracting Dan Eccleston out of those data, mountains of data, to extract you as an entity, and make sure it's this right Dan. I've picked the right Dan, and then risk score you. I need to profile your behavior, your previous transactions, your trading behavior, whatever I'm doing, to profile you. That data aggregation and data quality piece is non-trivial, and incredibly complex. And whatever model you have, if I've picked the wrong Dan, or I've only identified 50% of the features or attributes of you as an entity, the output is going to have, a variance on it of certainty. Back to your point around accuracy and reliability, and so. And then how quickly can I do that real time? I mean, to do that real time. So the challenges, generally speaking, with AI are at the data end of the value, earlier in the value chain. And that's how we see it.
And a lot of that data remains less structured, a lot of that source data, right?
It's less structured, it's in multiple silos, in incompatible formats, and it's good old-fashioned reference data, enterprise data management challenges, and so on.
I think we just saw I just saw something this morning that the ChatGPT have now made up-to-date data available, so they're using 2023 data as a source now. I don't know when they did that, but I think it's going to become available for everyone to start using soon. So that's pretty exciting in itself. I wonder what the implications for, you know, additional hardware and processing power, and how many more mountains in Norway do they need? Is it one in Norway that's cool with auto? It's an interesting. There's always going to be a trade-off. Like, it's Moore's law, isn't it? You know, doubling capacity every 18 months.
That's right.
And it's been doing it, but it's always like back to where we started. There's always a limitation from that perspective into how much can be done, right? We're just going to run into those barriers, but it's very positive. There's a lot of positive stuff going on, right? So
it's positive, and you know, basically, if you can invest in data centers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Is it just to wrap up? What do you think? You know, think about, you know financial markets well, and fintechs and that scope, but do you think there's anything that we haven't talked about, or to elaborate on in terms of what we have talked about, in terms of, like, you know, the next 3-5 years, what the game-changing things are going to be? Is there anything that you'd highlight?
No, I mean, look, I do think, you know, in any industry, in any sort of field, there come certain moments where you move from evolution. I know that was your initial question around evolution of AI. You move from evolution to revolution. And I think we are, as far as AI is concerned, we are at a revolutionary point because of those three forces coming together, you know, at the same time. So we're at a revolutionary point, which is great. With it comes massive opportunities, be it in financial markets or in healthcare or in government or in entertainment, whatever industry vertical you think about, the revolutionary opportunities. However, with that also comes a lot of risk. So the risk and governance side of it, and I mean, some of it will be policy and sort of, you know, I'm sure, I mean, I know that the central banks and the various standards bodies in the financial services sector, you know, from Basel to, you know, various stock exchanges are working hard and coming up with standards and policies around it. But I think while that's happening, we are leaving ourselves open to poor data, which can create bias, conscious and unconscious bias. But actually, we're also open to misinformation and manipulation. We've seen it, the political sphere, in the areas of, you know, voting manipulation and so on. I think the financial sector, capital markets are open to that as well, in terms of purposeful bad quality data being injected, and therefore then resulting in, you know, manipulated decision making.
So models.
Yeah, it should not be underestimated.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, that's been really interesting, really fascinating to talk.
No, thank you, it's fun.
Thanks very much indeed.